Evening, everybody. This is Tom Aiken. I'm the Success Engineer with Boom Life. Welcome to BoomShare, episode number 5. And tonight I have a really special guest, at least to me. His name is Leon Hayduchok. And the reason he's a special guest to me is I always tell everyone I would never have come up with GPS theory if I had never read his book. And so Leon is the author of Dying to Control, the 21st Century Dilemma. Prior to becoming an author, Leon was the founding pastor of Cornerstone Community Church in Utica, New York, where he led a church with a vision of creating a safe environment for experiencing God-centered life change. In 2010, Leon relocated to Houston, Texas, and wrote and published his book, and now offers his distinct perspective on life and faith to a broader audience through his writing, seminars, and workshops. So with that said, Leon, welcome to BoomShare, episode number 5. I'm really excited to have you.
Thanks, Tom. I appreciate you having me. You waited till the 5th episode to have me here, huh?
Oh well, we both kind of talked about it for a while. We're finally there.
Good to be here, Tom.
You were in the top 5 on my list.
Hey, I'll take that.
Hey, so why don't you tell me a little bit about your mission? Tell the folks out there who are listening and watching what you do with Dying to Control and what's your mission.
Well, Tom, I mean, my greater mission is to encourage people to overcome their fears, the guilt, and their shame, so that they're free to be the people that God created them to be.
Okay, that's a pretty broad statement. I like it. I really like it. So maybe elaborate that on a little bit. Who specifically are we talking about here?
Well, what we're talking about is really people in general. As a culture, as a whole, we're very distracted by social media. We're very consumed with what people perceive of us. Life is often about building our resumes. And so we're very consumed with how we appear, and we're very consumed with success, and we're very consumed with the things that we do. And my perspective, my opinion is when we do that, we live like mannequins on display. Our life is a show for people to see, and we really can get distracted from, firstly, being the people that God created us to be. And so my desire is to help people to understand who they really are and help them understand what things that they are potentially afraid of that are keeping them from really pursuing their true passions, their true calling, to help them understand what guilt or shame that they may have in their lives that cause them to believe that they're not capable of doing what they're really called to do. And so my desire is to really give people a chance to engage in the pursuit of being who they've been created to be. And so what I use for Dying to Control largely is the story of Adam and Eve as the launching point. And in that story, Adam and Eve do their own thing, and they cover and hide, and ultimately the story leads to them hiding behind the tree and God calling out to them, "Where are you?" And so that's sort of the metaphor that I use in my teaching and my workshop, is the idea that in some form or fashion we're all like Adam and Eve. We're all covering and hiding the truth, afraid to be truly known, struggling with guilt, struggling with shame. And so my desire is to help people resolve those issues so they can come out and experience the freedom that God call them to experience.
Well, that's a very interesting perspective. Do you think that there is a tendency for people to naturally think this way in terms of trying to kind of expose the truth about themselves, or what's the reason why they wouldn't if they don't?
Well, I think the core issue there is self-preservation. It's the idea that I'm trying to preserve myself. And that's why we have fear. We have fear because we're exposed, and anytime we're out of control, we're exposed, we experience fear. So the easier thing to do is just to cover and to hide. And so I think our natural inclination is to be self-preserving. And therefore, we respond to our fears that way.
It almost sounds like it's the opposite effect, though. When you attempt to self-preserve, or you feel like you're doing things to self-preserve, don't you kind of hide away parts of yourself?
Absolutely.
In some cases, the good parts.
Absolutely. And so that's a big part of what I'm trying to share with people is help them explore their own lives. So I don't have an agenda for anybody. My desire is to help them see what areas of their life that have created, again, guilt, shame, or what things that they're afraid of that keep them from truly pursuing what they're passionate about.
Well, I think that's pretty great. That aligns a lot with what I do with Boom Life. So Boom Life and GPS theory, I focus on core values and how values are what people show, they're what we talk about, and we show them through our actions. And so what are the values that are causing you to, take the actions to write the book and do the workshops, present workshops, and get out there and kind of expose yourself and be vulnerable to a public that is wanting to self-preserve?
Sure. Well, the first value I would probably talk about is being relational. To me, everything in life is ultimately about relationships. Whether it's our relationship with God, our family, people we work with, it's all about how we engage with one another. So for me, it's about being relational, and then secondly, very much related to that is community. The idea, how are we promoting community? How are we promoting life together in a positive, mutually encouraging way? And then also from there's the idea of being faithful. Faithful to your relationships, being faithful to your word, to what you've committed to, whether it's with your spouse, with your friends, your place of employment. And then another huge personal value of mine is authenticity. So the idea of dealing with our fear and the idea of coming out from behind the tree is the idea of being authentic and genuine. So those are some of the main core values that contribute to my pursuit of doing things with Dying to Control.
Well, that's pretty again, a very, very big and audacious, I'd say, group of values. Something that I think what you're trying to do really is help people live lives of integrity, or what I learned is I used to use the word integrity as if it meant doing the right thing when nobody's looking. That's kind of how it was always defined to me. But
right.
The more I researched the concepts of values and integrity, I learned what integrity really means is it's a sense of being whole. It's being a whole person. And
that's right.
And when you don't have, say, the relationships and the community and the faith and authenticity, there are blank spaces that cause us to create these cravings in us that we have a tendency to chase after.
Yeah, actually, integrity was the next word on my list that I decided to leave out. It was the idea of integrity, and for me, that's very much what it is. It's the idea of being true to yourself, the idea of being consistent with what you believe and living the life that is consistent with who you are.
So, what are you trying to do for people in terms of, like, if they were to walk out of one of your workshops or after they read your book, what are the words you would love to hear them say about you and in your work?
Well, about me, I'd like to say that that I'm engaging, about my work, that it's relevant to them, that it's eye-opening, that they get an opportunity to maybe see things about themselves that they haven't seen before. And then ultimately what I'd like for it to be is transformational. That people say, hey, I'm going to be living a different way, a way that's more consistent with who I am, with what I believe, and that they're excited about that.
So how are things going so far? How long have you been at it, and how are things going?
Well, the vision of Dying to Control and coming out from behind the tree and all the Genesis 3 stuff that comes from, it's been going on since I started the church in Utica 15 years ago now. So that's been going for 15 years. But in 2010, when I moved down here and wrote the book and started doing some seminars and publishing of that, the response on that front has been mixed. The response from people who've read the book, who I've had a chance to engage with, from that front, it's been overwhelmingly positive. People enjoy the material. It seems to resonate. They comes to be down to earth for them. So in that sense, it's been very good. The book reviews I've gotten have been very good. But on the negative side is sales haven't been great. Now, I've been hoping to sell more books, hoping to have more engagement with people. The difficulty, though, is the reality is it's a very crowded market. There's a lot of books out there. There's a lot of people out there who have a message to share. So it's been mixed in terms of how things have been going.
So while you're struggling with that side of it, I think that's again it's part of what I'm sure both of us work on when we are trying to help people, is helping them see that, hey, sometimes the results we get aren't exactly what we wanted, and so help the folks who are watching this interview think about what does that mean to you, and what's going to keep you going even though today maybe you're not getting the results you want. What does that mean to you, and is it enough to say, oh, I just don't have it, I'm gonna quit, I'm not selling books?
Well, let me address that part first. I'm just going to quit. And what I would say is, for me, that's an issue of fear. That's an issue of the reason why I'm going to quit is because I'm afraid it's not going to be successful. I'm afraid it's not going to get the results. For me personally, I'm afraid I'm going to get rejected. I'm afraid that people aren't going to like my message. And what that is, all of that is living out of fear, which is exactly the message I'm trying to tell people not to live out of. But yet, that's exactly what I've been struggling with. Is my message really relevant? Does it really matter? Do people really care? And those are the kind of ideas and questions that really cause you to doubt whether you should be doing what you're doing. But my core value of being committed to what I believe is my calling, which is to lead people and help people and encourage them to live a life of freedom, that's what keeps me going, is the commitment to that and the belief that that's what I'm called to. So I have a choice. I can either be driven by that commitment, or I can be driven by my fear of rejection.
And which one sounds more exciting to you?
Exciting is an interesting word choice. The living the committed life to what you're called to, that certainly is more exciting. So that's.
Yeah, I would agree completely. I've been at trying to make my way for several years myself. It's not an easy path. And as you said, it's a crowded market. There are lots of people doing things already that create a lot of overlap. And
sure.
I don't think there's anything wrong with that. But I would say, if you're not in it for the end, I mean, that's one of the greatest prospects, I guess, for me is, hey, what if? And while I'm doing this, I'm stepping out and stretching beyond something I normally would do. It's so easy to say no. I'm afraid. I have fear of failure,
sure.
And so I think your message is extremely important.
But what's something to keep in mind there, and what's hard is the whole integrity component. And it's because it's easy to say, hey, what do I have to do to sell books? I'll do anything I have to do. I'll do to sell books. And so a part of the integrity and a part of the whole being authentic is, there's nothing wrong with marketing, there's nothing wrong with selling, but being careful that I'm consistent and living with integrity, as opposed to, hey, you know what, I'll just do whatever I have to get the message out there. So there is a line you don't want to cross, and for each person that's different, I'm sure. But that's a struggle in there, as you've asked about, success from a material perspective versus just living out your core values. And so it's kind of hard to know where you should end and start with that.
So a realization I had a few years ago was, in a lot of cases, I was actually trying to help the unwilling. And so for me, the challenge was, how do I find the willing? And because I knew I didn't want to change either. I didn't want to sacrifice my or compromise my values for
sure.
for sales or whatever. Would you say? Sorry, I just got distracted by someone who walked in the room. Lost my whole train of thought. Lost it.
What you were saying was about wanting to share a message with people that really are interested in it, as opposed to those who are not interested in it. That's what you were talking about. So I think, were you going to ask me something along to how to identify those people, or who those people are?
Yeah, so, how are you going about, what's next? How are you going about trying to identify the willing, the folks who want to engage and take a deeper look at themselves and their lives?
Well, that's actually been part of the hard part for me. Is part of the way I did the marketing for the book early on was largely through word of mouth, friends, other people that are pastors or in ministry, and so early on I was getting some response and interacting and doing some speaking here and there, but that's slowed down. So my thought originally was that it would largely be word of mouth and that it would spread from there, and then from there people would go into my blog and making comments, and things would just organically grow from there. And in that sense, if those are the people that are engaging, then they're the ones that are interested. Where I stand now, it's in some sense now I need to be more proactive in trying to find those people, and that's a bit of the struggle that I'm having right now, because in some sense my message often is engaging church people, and frankly quite often the people that are most interested in my message are those who are either de-churched or unchurched. It's somewhere along the way aren't as interested in church as they maybe were as kids or when they were younger. And a big part of it is because they've determined that church is superficial and it's not real and they can't be authentic. So to a certain degree, I'm having a hard time finding my target audience because they may have given up on religion, but yet haven't given up on God. And so how do I find those people? If you could help me with that, Tom, that'd be awesome.
As soon as I find them, I'll be happy to help share the secret.
Awesome.
No worries. So so who do you think? Okay, so you already kind of talked about who would get the most out of your workshops. Who needs to know about them though? If you're looking for, it sounds like people who are unchurched, folks who maybe in the past churches have been your target market, but who any ideas then on who we need to send the message out to while when it comes to this BoomShare episode on who needs to know about your workshops and your book?
In very broad strokes, the most interested folks in my material generally are those that are considered part of the millennial generation. They're the ones that are more skeptical. They're the ones that have a lesser interest with established church, lesser interest in large organizations, and have a greater interest in relationships. So often that's often my demographic, but really anybody who's at a place in life who is at a crossroads of some sort looking for, hey, where do I go from here? Or if they feel that they're stuck, or if they feel that they have a passion for something but yet don't know how to overcome the hurdles to actually commit to doing it. So it could really be anybody who's in that kind of life transition stage. But if you're looking for a general demographic, it's going to be generally younger folks.
Okay. So how can people get in touch with you if they watch this interview and they want to know more? How can they interact with you, Leon?
Well, if they want to learn more about what I believe and what I write about culturally, they can go to my blog at dyingtocontrol.com, and they can also email me, whether they get to me through the blog or if they want to email me directly. It's Leon at dyingtocontrol.com, so they can get me there as well. And how else can they get they can also pick up a copy of my book. They can buy my book, Tom. They can buy my book and they can read it and get a greater sense of what it's about and follow up with me from there.
So I can say I've read almost as many books as are on your bookshelf behind you.
Okay.
But I know, seriously, I have read a lot of books over the years, and I'm not just saying this because you're on my BoomShare episode, but this is one of the top 3 books I've ever read in my entire life, and it's because it was thought-provoking and transformational in nature. It really made me think about human nature, what's at the very core of who I am and what I'm trying to accomplish. Smug for you, one of your biggest cheerleaders, Leon, and
I appreciate it, Tom.
And I'll make sure we attach the link if it's not showing up on the broadcast here to how people can buy your book and how they can get on your blog.
Sounds great.
So I want to thank you for coming on. I want to thank you for what you're doing because I believe that there is such a need in our culture, not just in America, but worldwide, for kind of taking a step back from technology. Although technology can be great, it also can be very distracting, as you said. And so I want to thank you for the work you're doing, being vulnerable and putting yourself out there and open to rejection as well as success, because it's not just, like you already indicated, it's not just easy. So thank you for what you're doing. Thank you for joining me tonight. I really appreciate it. And everyone else, well, before I close off, Leon, anything you wanted to close with, or anything else you wanted to say that I should have asked about?
Thank you, Tom. I appreciate you having me on your show. It's always a pleasure talking with you, and I'm just grateful for the opportunity, and hope that whoever's listening, our time together is encouragement to them to pursue their passions and be what they've been created to be. So that's about it.
I hope so as well. So thank you, everyone, for watching tonight. And if you want to know more about Boom Life, my website is www.goboomlife.com, and I also have a blog. It's goboomlife.blogspot.com. And there's an upcoming book that I'm publishing. It'll be coming out in the next 2 months, I'm hoping. It's called Finding Success. Get what you really want. And I think it's going to make a great companion on your bookshelf next to Leon's book. So hopefully they both have creased binders. That means you read through them multiple times, and dog-eared pages. All right. Thanks again, everyone. Leon, thank you. Have a great night, and we're signing off.
Good night.
Good night.